Hi, a very warm welcome to Life, Loss and Hope. Today we're going to be talking about emotions and feelings that accompany grief. Hi, thank you for joining us today. I'm talking about emotions and feelings. Please continue to like and subscribe and leave comments. In grief and loss, there are so many feelings and emotions that surface and vary in degrees of intensity, even from moment to moment. In the shock and acute grief stage, there is little respite from the roller coaster of emotions. I'm sure for many of you that these feelings have resurfaced over the festive season of Christmas, New Year, as they do also on personal anniversaries, birthdays, weddings, social and family events, bringing a fresh flood of emotional responses to the surface. From an early age, we have been conditioned to see emotions as either positive or negative, good or bad, helpful or unhelpful. And here I have two labels, a positive one and a negative one. And if we took this pile of cards with words written on them, and we were asked to choose which word belongs to which pile, where would we allocate most words like sad, angry, crying, guilty, fear, anxiety, regret, jealousy and blame? Probably to the negative pile. There's so much societal judgment surrounding perceived negative feelings, and therefore it can make us internalise, isolate ourselves, feel ashamed or bottle up what is truly happening in us. I'm sure that words like happy, calm, thankful likewise would be allocated to a positive pile. It seems that they are more personally and socially acceptable. However, the truth is that all your feelings in grief are valid, and your emotions have a right to live, to be expressed and be released. They are a sacred path to the way out of the intensity of loss. By facing and feeling the pain, it is part of the healing journey. What is suppressed, hidden or resisted will persist, but what we face transforms us. The first priority is to relinquish the concept of negative and positive emotions in grief. There is no right or wrong feeling, and your expression of your own loss will be unique to you. Don't be your inner critic by judging how you respond or think when you're grieving in a way that you think you should do or how others expect you to. Your emotions are not too much, too little, abnormal or unacceptable. Whatever you feel, you feel. And when you are ready, it is really helpful to talk about your emotions, to have them witnessed, acknowledged, particularly without judgment by someone who is not trying to advise you or to fix you. Grief is sad and big and very scary. Undoubtedly, grief makes us intensely sad, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you are clinically depressed. Sadness is a normal reaction to loss, and grieving is a natural organic experience that serves a purpose and is nature's way for us to engage with that process to heal. Feeling the emotion causes it to pass over you and through you in its fullness. It's a little bit like standing on the beach close to the incoming wave. Instead of running away from the wave, advancing towards you or trying to hold it back, just stand still and let its force wash over you, bringing a release and even a new layer of healing. To receive as that wave of emotion comes, know that it will recede and lose its power. Emotions are supposed to be the energy in motion to take us in a forward movement and help us process our loss little by little towards the meaning and healing that we so desperately desire. I personally used to fight this process, as I felt as if I did engage with it, that my feelings, like a tsunami, would completely take me out. And so I would quickly distract myself with whatever I could. Being busy is often the default with anything to take the focus off the pain. But doing this only causes the pain to pile up in your body and can keep you stuck in grief. It takes more energy to resist emotions than to engage with the flow of letting them out. I'm going to talk about several emotions that people can find very confusing and distressing in grief. And the first is relief. In grief, a feeling of initial relief can feel like an unexpected emotion and can often get judged wrongly, especially by ourselves. I can clearly recall that when my mother died after months of traumatic suffering, that the first emotion I felt was relief, which seemed so incongruous and unacceptable, even shocking, as the last thing I wanted was for her to die. However, it was a relief, as she had suffered so much, and we had all suffered with her, and her death was the great reliever of that suffering. The initial relief was a normal expression of how much I loved her, and was not a selfish feeling or something to feel guilty about. Secondly, anger too can feel like an unwelcome emotion in grief. Many people can find themselves easily irritated, short-fused, intolerant, and angry, very reactive to situations and people that normally they wouldn't react to. Anger is just a symptom of grief. A little bit like the red light on your car dashboard. Imagine how crazy and irresponsible it would be if we tried to manage or ignore that red light. We could, by putting a piece of black tape over it, or even disconnect the electrical wire that leads to the light. But that wouldn't solve the problem. It would just make other things start going wrong with the car. In fact, the red light, like anger, is not the problem. It is an indicator of a deeper root and cause. Anger often accompanies grief and is very common to experience. It is natural and yet uncomfortable. And for me, it was just like that. I'd grown up in a house where anger was an issue, and this made me scared, feel unsafe and threatened about expressing it myself or seeing others express it. So unsurprisingly in grief, I felt that I had to deny anger, and I just couldn't be angry. So I cried instead when I was sad, and I cried when I was angry. Later, I realized that anger and sadness come from the same place, but that it is good to recognize and validate your anger and say to yourself, it's okay to be angry, very angry in grief. Someone that you love and all the hundreds of things very special that they carried are not there anymore. Your anger needs a safe outlet to be released. For example, you could punch a pillow, you could talk or even rant aloud and even say that I'm mad, I'm angry, because, and saying it out loud gets to the root of the pain and the fear under the anger. In the Christmas season, your anger may have reappeared and be directed at your loved one, yourself, others for not understanding, or for even having what you have lost. Anger is a part of grief and has a place at the table. It deserves to be felt and safely let out and talked through. In my role at the hospice, I used to encourage people to vent their anger verbally and have a good rant at life, at illness, at God, at family, or whatever helped. And I take great comfort from David in the book of Psalms, who shows us not to be in denial of our emotions, but to fully express the depth of sorrow, injustice that we're feeling, and to be authentic and raw, and even ask questions like, why? Why me? Why has this happened? Why have you forgotten me? What are you doing, God? The same questions that we all ask. And it is a really healthy pattern. And although that outpouring of emotions, thoughts and questions may have no direct answer, like David, we can end up at the door of trusting and hoping, even though we don't understand. Another emotion that we rarely talk about, and one that I have felt very ashamed of, is jealousy. Even the word evokes a vision of a mean-spirited, negative, unkind person, and no one wants that label. But in grief and loss, I often felt jealous. Jealous of my loved one in heaven, jealous of friends who still had their mum, jealous of friends with a long, happy marriage after I was on my own. jealous of other people's family life. And this may be how you felt at Christmas or on a special occasion. And seeing people's photos on Facebook or on social media of them hugging their mum or dad or the person that you feel that you are missing can be very painful. So recognise it's a natural reaction to your loss and doesn't make you a terrible friend. Feeling this way for me in grief is one of the hardest things to reconcile and made me feel bad about myself, because it's not in line with my character and my heart, and it won't be for yours either, I'm sure. Now I've learned that feeling jealous of others having things that we are missing is and can be completely normal when we're grieving. We can even feel resentful if our world has been ripped out from under us while others are happily getting on with their lives. Our hurting mind can bring us to a bad place, but it doesn't make us a bad or a selfish person. Please try to find someone to share your feelings with that will hear your pain and not judge you. Recognise that how you are feeling is normal and it will fade. It's not self-pity, but rather a sense of unfairness or injustice and yearning for your loved one. Often the emotions in grief can feel very overwhelming and isolating, but instead of chastising ourselves in private, if we share this dark side of grief by talking openly, we can try to accept these unwanted thoughts as being part of the grieving process. It's not shameful, and if we acknowledge that they are valid, it may empower us to discuss these hardest aspects of our grief together, as we are not alone in our thoughts. There are many more emotions that we will talk about that surface in the pain of loss, but today it's key to remember that there are no good or bad feelings in grief. All your feelings are valid, they need facing, and that your emotions are the pathway to your healing. You may feel hopeless, like hope died with your loved one. But hope didn't die. Like love, there is always hope, and there's always light in the darkest night. So hold on, knowing that no feeling is final, and your path will get brighter. You're not alone, holding you in heart and prayer.